Violet here, second generation homeschooling mom of 3. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an infant. Today I wanted to share with you all of the books that we read aloud this year. So let's get into it. So we started our school year off with A Bear Called Paddington last September. And my kids really liked this book. They thought it was funny. They liked Paddington's antics. So I read this to them, and then we have since listened to a bunch more of the books on audiobook. I think there's like 15 or 16 books in the series. So I read this one, and then we listened to the first 7 books on audiobook, and then we took a break for a while, and then now we're back and listening to them again. And hopefully we'll finish up the rest of the Paddington books this summer. So after I read that book to my kids, I read them this Heartwood Hotel series. There's 4 books. There's one for each season. And both of my kids, both my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old, loved this. My 5-year-old told me that this series was one of his favorite things that I read to him this year. And he doesn't like most of the read-alouds that I read, he'll tolerate, but he doesn't really like. But this series he really liked. It's very sweet. There's nothing too scary in it. It has like some humorous moments. There's nothing that I would consider super funny, or there's like characters aren't joking with each other or anything, but there's kind of humorous moments and very sweet moments. And he's very sensitive, so he really likes books that have exciting things happening but aren't too scary, and there aren't really any mean characters or anything. So this was really good for him. And these were pretty easy for me to read aloud. And they have pictures every so often. And these are just really, really nice books. I did realize after I was done reading this series, though, because it took me a long time. It took me several months to read this series, and it is not that long. I realized that I needed to change up my strategy. My infant's getting older, and so she requires more attention during meal times now. So after I finished reading this series to my kids, I switched over to doing audiobooks. So I'll read some picture books and things at lunchtime, and then we'll listen to whatever our read aloud is on audiobook. So we're still all listening to it together, but I'm not reading it myself just because that's easier for me to manage with my infant right now. I do want to get back to reading more books aloud because I miss it. But for right now, audiobooks are working better for us. So we listened to Mr. Popper's Penguins, and we also listened to the sequel. It's written by different authors. My kids loved this book. They thought it was hilarious, and they've actually since listened to it a couple of more times on audiobook since we listened to it all together. The next books that we tried, I knew this was going to be too scary for my son, and it absolutely was. He did not want to listen to any part of it, and that was okay. A Wolf Called Wander. My daughter really enjoyed this book. It's based on a real wolf and his journey, and you can see it's pretty heavily illustrated. We listened to it, so I checked this book out so my daughter could kind of look at the illustrations and follow along if she wanted to. But we mostly just listened to it, and I think the narrator did a good job with it. But yeah, this was definitely too scary for my son, which I knew. So my daughter and I just listened to this without him. Like once he was done eating, we would pull this up and listen to it. But my daughter did enjoy this a lot, but she did not want to continue with the series. There's 2 more, one about a whale and one about a horse. And she was like, wolves are more interesting to me. I'm kind of done with this series. Let's move on. She also was missing listening to things with her brother. So she wanted to move on to something that everybody would like listening to. So this is The Wild Robot, and both my son and my daughter really enjoyed the first book in this series. It has some humorous moments. Roz the robot is trying to adapt to life on an island, and it's just very funny and cute up until the end. It gets a little bit scarier at the end, and my son didn't really like that, and he did not like the sequel. He didn't want to listen to that either. It was a little bit too intense for him. And then neither of my kids wanted to continue on to the 3rd book in the series for whatever reason. I guess they felt like, my daughter said that she felt like the story was over. It was done. Roz was back on the island and happy, and she wasn't really interested. The 3rd book talks about pollution, and Roz has to go off and save the island again. And she was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm happy with where the story is right now. So both my kids liked the 1st book. My daughter likes the 2nd book, but they were done after that. This next book is a very gentle book. It's good for kids who are sensitive, or at least that's what I had heard. And I would agree with that, but both of my kids just thought it was really boring. I thought it was really sweet. And I was hoping my son would like it because he is more sensitive. But it's about this bear, Dwayne, and his friends, and kind of the little adventures they get up to in the North Pole, but nothing is particularly high stakes or tense, and my kids just thought it was really boring. There's a sequel to it. And they don't want to read the sequel. So I thought it was really cute. It reminded me a lot of Winnie the Pooh. I thought the characters were slightly less annoying, actually, than some of the Winnie the Pooh characters. I was kind of sad that my kids didn't want to listen to the sequel because I thought it was cute and I wanted to listen to the sequel. Maybe next year. This next book is called Henry and the Chalk Dragon. My kids both liked this okay. I don't know that they loved it. It's about a boy who, it's sort of like a chapter book version of Harold and the Purple Crayon. He does all these chalk drawings on his bedroom door and they come to life and terrorize him at school. So I think there was a lot of stuff in here that my kids don't necessarily connect to because it was like public school situations. They liked listening to this book, but they didn't love it. So then my daughter asked if we could listen to books that were just about kids, kind of just kids living their everyday lives and having normal adventures. So I checked out this book, The Vanderbeekers, because I'd heard a lot of people really liked it, and we started reading it. And the very first scenario that all the kids are, or kind of the thing that they're dealing with in this book, is they may have to move. They may be getting forced out of their house. And both of my kids just absolutely did not want to listen to a storyline of people being forced to move. As a little bit of background, we've moved a lot. My husband was active duty military for a while, so we moved every 2 years. And then once he got out of the military, that was like kind of a hard transition. So we moved a lot during that. And now we're kind of more settled, but we've only been in our current house for a little under a year. So my kids just absolutely did not want to read a story about kids being forced to move. It was just too close to some of their like less pleasant memories, I think. So we did not finish this book. We didn't even get past the first couple of chapters. So after that, I picked up the Penderwicks to try to find something else that was just a story of kids having fun. And my daughter loved this book, except for there's a plot line about the oldest daughter. I think she's 11 in this book, and she's experiencing her first crush. And I didn't have any problems with how they portrayed that storyline, but my daughter was just like, this is so weird. Why is she acting like this? And she didn't get it at all. The other thing I wanted to note about this book is my son wasn't super thrilled with it because the sisters are kind of very casually mean to each other in the way that they speak. Like they'll say things like, oh, if you wake me up, I'm going to murder you. Or they call each other idiot and things like that, that my son was just like, why are they so mean to each other? I really don't like that. So aside from those like small things, we did enjoy reading this book, but I don't think we're going to continue on with the series because I think it gets a little bit more into topics and situations that my kids aren't ready to deal with yet because the characters keep getting older and older as they progress through the series. So they like fall in love and get married and all of that. My kids are not interested or ready to read books about that yet. So those are all the books that I read aloud to my kids this year. Read aloud / listened to with them. My husband also reads aloud to the kids, and he does that at night before they go to bed. And so a lot of the time he'll read picture books to them. The way that we do our like bedtime reading, or the way he does it for the kids, is he has each of them choose a story that they want him to read. It can be a picture book, it can be a chapter from a chapter book, whatever. And then he chooses a story that he wants to read to them. So sometimes he'll choose picture books we have or books we've checked out from the library, but he'll also read chapter books. I'm going to show you a couple of the chapter books that he read to them this year. He read them this whole Skunk and Badger series. It's about this kind of curmudgeonly badger and then a skunk who moves in with them, and they become friends. One of the things that my husband liked about this book is Badger is into rocks, and so he spends a lot of time going, oh, is this a rock or is it a mineral? My husband really likes geology. He's gotten into rocks recently. He actually goes to a rock club that meets once a month. So the skunk in this moves in with the badger, and then they have some adventures. There's illustrations, and this first one especially was funny and cute and charming. The other two books in the series I think were a little bit more forced feeling. But my husband still enjoyed reading them to the kids, and they had fun. And then the other new thing that he read them this year was James Herriot's Treasury for Children. And I think my kids enjoyed this all right. I mean, it depended on the story whether they liked it or not. But this is a good collection because the stories are pretty much all happy, and the illustrations in this are really nice. And then the other chapter books that he read them I'll link below our favorite Read-Alouds video. He reread a lot of those books to the kids, because they asked to hear them again. Other than that, my daughter has listened to most of the How to Train Your Dragon series on Libby. She's almost done with it. David Tennant narrates it, so it's excellent, but it's not something, it's too scary for my son. So she just listens to that on her own. And then she has listened to the Mrs. Piggle Wiggle series over and over and over again. She loves that one. Anytime she's in between things she's listening to, she'll listen to that. My son prefers to listen to podcasts rather than books right now. And so he's really into the Snoop and Sniffy podcast, which is about two dogs who are detectives. So, and I'll link that below as well. So in his free time, that's what he chooses to listen to. So I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear what read-alouds you loved during the year. Drop a comment below and let me know. I'll link everything in the description box below. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on a link and make a purchase, I do receive a small commission. Thank you for watching.